As Ukrainian forces make stunning advances, reclaiming the entirety of the Kharkiv region, there's new evidence of Russian atrocities committed against the Ukrainian people. Residents of recently liberated towns describing the horrors of the Russian occupation.
Я еще не отошел. Фактически еще не отошел от этих, можно сказать, смертей.
Испугалась. Сильно-сильно. Сильно-сильно испугалась. Эта лужа крови у меня до сих пор перед глазами. Огромная лужа крови.
It's a reminder of the danger and uncertainty that the Ukrainian people still face every single day as the war nears the 7-month mark. And it's only expected to get worse for them, the civilians there, as winter draws closer. 7 million Ukrainians are now refugees. The vast majority of that 7 million are children. Our next guests have been tireless in their work aiding the Ukrainian people and making sure that their hardships are not forgotten by us. Dr. Erwin Redlener is the co-founder of the Ukraine Children's Action Project. It's an initiative designed to provide urgent mental health and educational support to displaced Ukrainian children. And the legend, singer, songwriter, artist, and activist Joan Baez is here. She's a member of the Ukraine Children's Action Project Advisory Board. Her portrait of Ukrainian President Zelensky has raised $125,000, all going to relief efforts for Ukraine. Dr. Redlener and Joan Baez, thank you so much for spending time with us. Joan, I want to start with you. Dr. Redlener can get anyone and everyone marshaled to row in the same direction to support this cause. But I want to know how he persuaded you to. I know you do a lot for a lot of people, and why did this rise to the top for you?
Well, partly because I've worked with him for many, many years, and I have total faith in what he's planning to do next. And also, I liked the title, all of the words, Ukraine, Children, Action, and Project. So that drew me. And I think people have to choose whatever draws them particularly, because the causes are endless in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Erwin, I think I'm involved too. I try not to get myself, I tried to cover things as best I can. This is the rare exception. And for me, Erwin, it's that you keep going over there and getting on the ground and coming back and giving us your firsthand knowledge of what the suffering is really like for these kids. I want to ask you this question. It seems to me that what we're seeing in the Ukrainian advances is that war traumatizes kids, whether you're winning or losing. And for some reason, this story about military success is so hopeful for Ukraine. But I imagine it is just as painful for kids, whether their parents are away at war and winning or losing, they're still away, and that trauma still exists. So tell me how you see these two things, the good news for Ukraine on the military front, but the ongoing trauma for children and refugees.
Sure, Nicole. So the reality is that there are a number of things going on simultaneously. And first and foremost, obviously, is the progress that the Ukrainians are making militarily. It's actually quite remarkable. But win or lose, whenever this conflict is over, and we hope it's soon, the trauma that's been done to so many millions of children in Ukraine is incredible, and it's not going to disappear just because the war is over. These children and their families will not be going back to many of their homes and communities in eastern and southern Ukraine because they've been wrecked, they've been destroyed by the brutality of the Russian advances there. So I have a feeling that the Ukrainians will win the war, but the longer war of dealing with the humanitarian crisis will persist, and especially for children. And then we'll have to be dealing with the idea about recovery, and that's going to take a long time and a lot of money as well.
Joan, for President Zelensky, the advocacy and the attention that people like yourself bring to the war in Ukraine is of utmost importance. I think he, more than any world leader, past or present, understands the power of people who can reach people where they're open, where they're taking in art, or where they're taking in music, and where their hearts are open. If you could just tell me what you see in President Zelensky's efforts to sort of meld public speaking and culture and all of those sort of soft powers to have support for this very brutal war.
Yeah, First of all, I have to say, it keeps coming to my mind that the Russian soldier kids also need help, and probably Erwin will be involved in that as well. Zelensky is probably is the first non-violent pacifist painting I've ever done. I've never painted a war hero, and there's something about him. Clearly kind of came from nowhere and became this leader that people love. I have the portrait, by the way, up by the road. It's not quite a billboard, but it's pretty big. And people honk when they go by. You know, it gives them something to relate to and be pleased about. It's for himself. I just hope that he lives long enough that I can dance with him when this whole thing is over.
I think that seems highly likely. He seems like someone who, when he is not a wartime leader, is a well-rounded person. Erwin, I'll give you the last word. Tell us what we can do as people who care.
Yeah, so, right, thanks, Nicolle. So the problem is that for these children, there are two big challenges they're facing. First of all, they're not back in school yet, many of them, and this is a disaster long term. But the other thing is that they have this profound psychological trauma that needs to be identified and treated. And we're doing a lot on that score, on both scores, really, to make sure that children are getting the support they need to come out of this with some sense of hope and optimism, which I think is possible. And people can help us. They can support the Ukraine Children's Action Project, which is ukrainecap.org, and that would be greatly appreciated. We're doing a lot already. We're going to be doing more, and the need is endless, but we're going to hang in there. And thanks to people like Joan and you, Nicolle, we're not going to let the attention leave the front of